From the EPAWA headquarters in South Allentown, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video blog on the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may or may not reflect the thoughts of the EPAWA staff as a whole nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Hey, good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, March 18th, 2018. I did not think we would have to do this again, since this is the Weather Weeklies videos are a winter-only long-range blog. So we recap the long range and take a look at some threats in the future. Didn't think we'd have to deal with that again last week, but again, Mother Nature likes to play tricks on me again, and it looks like we're going to have a storm threat on the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe this week, and maybe even the following weekend yet. I'm also getting old here, but hey, as long as we have slightly below average temperatures in place, anything can happen, and that's all we need. Now, we are going to go, as we go further in time, that's going to become more difficult, not impossible. We can still get snow in April. This has happened before. This is not unprecedented. It becomes more increasingly unlikely the further you go along because climatology kicks in. Of course, this is today's Sunday, March 18th. We got 2 more days and we'll be technically spring. Calendar spring anyway, but things happen. We have to watch the system Tuesday, Wednesday, and then again next weekend. So here's what the long-range table looked like from Friday. Again, slightly below average or below average is going to be the theme going forward. We are going to have a transient period of warmth in between here, 25th, 26th, through about the 28th. Near to slightly above average, though. Not really warm, just not below average, okay? And then we go right back to below average, I think, for the first week of, largely the first week of April. And then right around the end of the first week or the beginning of the second week, we start going back to near average and start to climb out of this a little bit. I think that's where your period is, or where that ends, this dominant, slightly below average to below average temperature regime that we've been in for a while. I think that's where the light at the end of the tunnel exists right now. Now, this is the first system we're going to be dealing with, nor'easter number 4. Is it a nor'easter? And I might have to back off these. Some of this wording here on Friday, it looked a lot more potent at that point. This is starting to look like a mostly suppressed and squashed type thing. Wouldn't really call it a nor'easter because it's not really coming up the coast and crawling and providing those, you might have northeasterly winds out of it, but I mean, it's not going to be anything to write home about. So we're going to take a look at this one. There will be a first call today because some areas will get accumulating snow. We just have to determine exactly where. This system, second system, is the weekend system. We have here listed as rain. It did look like rain when we were looking at this on a Friday. Now you got a few models suggesting, well, it might be some snow to going over to rain, or it might be mostly snow. I think the snow going over to rain is probably a better idea. It might be enough cold air at first where you have, and it's a warm front that's going to be pushing through. So, you get overrunning precipitation ahead of a warm front, and eventually warm air advection wins and turns it over to rain. So I think that's probably your best idea with this. But this system here, this one on Tuesday and Wednesday, we give it as headaches for a while. And again, just on Friday, it looked like this is going to be a big storm. Now it looks like it's just, it just fizzled. So, I mean, some areas will get some snow, and in some areas that haven't gotten snow or much snow this year, and that little snow hole might fill in a little bit in some places, down by D.C. especially. So anyway, we're going to take a look at this and in this outlook and really focus on that system Tuesday and Wednesday here. We are going to be slightly below average this month, and above average snowfall we have here, but a lot of that has already fallen for most places. Okay, April, I think we turn the corner and head to near to slightly near to slightly above average after a below average start to the month. Now, a big thing, we're not going to get all the MJO and ins and outs like we normally do in every video. I'm going to try to keep this just basically centric of this storm in the middle of the week. The NAO progression is going from negative to where it is now to positive. So the storm, when it hits, is in this transition period right in here. This is when the storm hits. And a lot of times when you have these, when you have a negative NAO heading toward, the teleconnections heading toward positive like this, that's when you usually get a storm to coincide there along the East Coast. It just happens. That's one of those things. So this is kind of coinciding right around the same time that the NAO is going to neutral. It'll eventually go positive. How long does it stay there? I don't know. But it looks like around the 25th, 26th, when we get our colder shot, it's going to head back to neutral or maybe slightly below, or maybe just slightly negative. So the NAO is in part what's going to keep our colder than average risk through the beginning of, through at least the beginning of April, probably the first week or so. Okay, this is one of the contributing factors. The EPO is also a factor. The WPO is a factor. I didn't show those here in the graph because I don't want to confuse anybody. But that's what it's looking like. The pattern through the end of March. This is around our system or just after that system that has in the middle of the week. So all during the next week, it's going to be, with the exception of Monday, is going to be below average in temperatures. Okay, after that we have a little bit of warmth out here moving into the plains that you can see behind it. So that's going to move east, but it's going to moderate. So I'd say near to slightly above average temperatures we're going to be expecting once that system comes through next weekend. After that it gets a little milder. Okay, so again, warm front moving through. You have the overrunning snow to rain type thing maybe next weekend in some spots, especially in the interior. We'll get into that later. But this is looking like at least we have a slightly above average period, near to slightly above average period. So it's not below average anyway for a couple days. And then we get another pattern of slightly below settling in. This is for the first week of April. You can see that here. This is actually April 1st. So slightly below. This is slightly below, but compared to, it's relative to normal at that time. You got to remember normal highs on April 1st are like 58 in Philadelphia, something like that. Mid 50s or low to mid 50s elsewhere. So, you know, if it's slightly below, is that really cold? Not really. 40s. Okay. So, you know, the longer we go in time, the harder it is going to be to get any snow threats. But at the same time here, you can see the blocking come back into Greenland. You have the PV sitting over central Canada, you know. So part of that is extension of that is going to give you some slightly below average temperatures as we head into the first week of April. I don't think it lasts beyond that, though. That's what we're looking at right now. Now let's get into this Tuesday, Wednesday storm threat, because I know everybody's worried about that. What's going on with us? Well, today is the day we would actually put out a first call because we're at that time frame. I've seen a few comments like wondering why we haven't put our first call out already. Well, this isn't starting until Tuesday. I mean, I don't know how early you want me to put out a call, something that's uncertain. But anyway, here's what it looks like. This is Tuesday morning. Okay, and we have a primary that's going to be cutting into eastern Kentucky, maybe West Virginia. It's going to transfer its energy to another system just off the Carolina coastline or near Virginia Beach, something like that. Now, it's not going to come. The Canadian last night had this thing going right up here like the coast, up the coast, and just crushing the interior. That's not going to happen. What I think this is going to do is kind of head more in this direction, out here to the east-northeast, because the pattern is very flat and progressive. This is not a big amped pattern. We have I know you have an upper level low sitting here. That's partly driving this. And if you look at that, that's going to be, it would be right here. Here's your upper level low. Here's your secondary low developing on the European. But it's the same thing. It's cold in the upper levels here, but you have confluence off to the north. I'll show you what that is in a second. It's going to keep this precipitation from coming too far north. It kind of squashes this a little bit. So there's a limit or a cap of how far north this can get because it's running into this confluence off to the north. And the confluence is running up here like this. You got the confluence sitting up here like this. There's your confluence. So what that is just kind of it's ripping any chances of precipitation away from these regions and forcing it further south. Not so much the confluence, but the convergence as a result of that confluence. And I know it sounds confusing. I'll try to explain it as best as I can when I get to that graphic in a layman's way or terms so you can understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the morning of Tuesday. So you got some rain, sleets, or freezing rain, sleet. Down by the Philadelphia metro, maybe and then some snow back here in western Maryland and parts of northern Virginia and northeastern West Virginia. Maybe southern Pennsylvania getting into it as well. So that's Tuesday morning. Tuesday afternoon. Now keep in mind the timing here. This is Tuesday afternoon around 5 p.m. Hasn't moved much. Again, the low redevelops and takes over, but it's moving out in this direction like this, not up the coast. So you're not getting too much any further up to maybe I-76. Pennsylvania Turnpike, that's about it. I think that's the best call right now, south of the Pennsylvania Turnpike for any accumulating snow. But this is also taking place in the middle of the day. So how much of this is going to stick without the heavier rates? I wouldn't bank on a lot, especially not on non-paved surfaces. I mean, if you're out here in the mountains in West Virginia, great. Yeah, maybe there. But out in these areas, southern Lancaster, southern New York, places like that, I wouldn't bank on it. And even non-paved accumulations are going to be tough. So whatever the snow maps are indicating, you probably can cut those in almost half. So we're going to weight that as well. Now there's also another wave that comes through Tuesday night, but is probably going to be highlighting the same areas. Here's our main system that took off on Tuesday that affected us. Here's another one that develops behind it. Okay, you got another one here. And this is all under the upper level low influence that's extending back from this low. So you get another piece of energy, another low developing behind it, and some light snows continuing overnight Tuesday night into Wednesday. So that's where you have that, but probably in the same areas that had it for the first time. So I don't think this is going to be like, all right, we missed wave 1, we're going to get whacked by wave 2. No, it probably is going to be staying in the same generalized areas and might miss Pennsylvania entirely. All right, so I think as far as snow totals, you're looking at these areas right down here, right along the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, probably south of the Pennsylvania Turnpike, I-76, probably south of there. Same thing here in New Jersey, but how much of this is going to be ice versus snow? We got to figure all this out. There's a lot of mess here we got to figure out. So going to be, with how much snow falls and at what time does it stick and things like that. It just a lot goes into it. But here's what I was talking about with the confluence and why it can't come further north. You see this gyre right here? This is an area of confluence off to the north. So as this storm moves up here, here's the upper. This is looking at an upper level standpoint, and then it's forced to transfer to a secondary down here. It really can't come too far north because of this being here. And what confluence does, the most unscientific way of explaining why confluence suppresses any kind of cyclone, which this is that the convergence aloft increases mass in the column and raises surface pressure. So in a sense, it blocks the cyclone from gaining altitude, or latitude, I'm sorry. But I mean, it's not exactly what happens, but that's the best way I can explain it so you can understand it. It just kind of blocks it from gaining too much latitude by this feature being here. And this will continue out in this direction instead of coming up the coast. So that's what we're dealing with this week. We also have a zoomed in version of this, just so you can see that feature. You get a very strong northwesterly winds aloft here at 500 millibars. So it's going to keep everything kind of going this way, and not it'll cap it from going too far north, and everything's kind of pushed out this way, and you have dry air, sinking air that is not too far north of I-76, so it's going to cut off pretty quickly. That's the whole general idea. All right. So hopefully I didn't confuse you by that, but I don't think I see a big change in this thing coming north today or trending that way. If it does, we will of course update that with the 5 p.m. call today. And here is the system on this is next Saturday night, Sunday. Now this is a system that's going to be coming down like this right here. We have to watch this because there's modeled to be a very strong high pressure right here, which could influence this storm and keep it a little bit colder, or at least get enough colder in here at the onset. So when this is tracking in here, you have a low right there. You have a warm front sticking out ahead of it, cold front sticking out here like this. Ahead of that warm front right here is where you would get snow, at least at first, until the warm front would move through. But this is looking at Saturday, Sunday of next week. So one at a time here. But there is the potential for something wintry, at least to start with this system. Got a couple of high pressures here fighting each other. This one's, of course, stronger. So I would, at least as long as we have slightly below average temperatures, you have the opportunity for some wintry events through the remainder of this month anyway. So in a summary, we'll have largely cooler than average temperatures continuing through the first week or so of April. Again, I think around the 9th or so, we start turning the corner a little bit, heading back to near average. We're watching the March 21st, 20th and 21st storm closely. This is, of course, our system Tuesday, Wednesday. The first call, and most likely, is going to be probability based. In other words, we're not going to say, okay, Philadelphia's getting 36 inches. We're not going to be that precise. We're going to say best chance areas to see this, 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 and this, and highlight those areas. That's probably most likely going to be a probability based first call at 5 p.m. on Sunday. And of course, we're watching one more potential for next weekend, but too far to take seriously. Most likely scenario with that is maybe some snow at the onset, or a mix going over to rain with that warm front. But again, week out, a lot of things can change. Again, uncertain. I'm not going to call this the final Weather Weeklies video, but uncertain we'll need this next week or not. We'll see what this storm does, but it actually might be happening prior to the Weather Weeklies videos that's recorded on Sunday. So if this is the last threat, we have no more after that. This will be the last one, so I just don't want to call that definitively just yet. But I do appreciate all the support that we've had for this throughout the winter, and for those of you that watch these videos religiously, again, I thank you for doing that, and it's very much appreciated, and the nice comments received, the emails, things like that. We will continue to this. Again, if it does not happen next week, we will continue again in November of this year, once we start into ahead of the winter of 2018-2019. And the threats going forward from there. I'm Eastern PA Weather Authority meteorologist Bobby Marchus. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, March 18th. And take care. We'll see you again next week, maybe, if there's still some storm threats.